the dark depths of the ocean, 13,000 feet below, scientists have found something that has raised questions about our very existence. Something that shouldn't have been there at such a depth, but its presence has given us a serious warning. Just few months ago, we heard numerous reports of deep sea animals coming out of the ocean in large numbers. Is this the reason behind it? One day in 2013, deep sea scientist Andrew Sweetman and his team wanted to study the health of animals in the deep sea. They had a feeling that the lives of deep sea animals could be at great risk, especially in this area, the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, which lies in the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and Mexico. Why it is dangerous? Well, you will understand it later. But with this in mind, Andrew Sweetman sent his special machine, the automated seafloor lander, 5,000 meters below the ocean in this area. As soon as the lander reached the bottom, this equipment came out from it. This is called a benthic chamber. It is basically a tank which captures water inside itself, isolates it, and then studies it through sensors installed inside it. Through this, they had to find out at what speed the amount of oxygen decreases in such deep waters of the ocean. Because, as we've always been taught, nearly 80% of oxygen is produced on the surface of the ocean through the process of photosynthesis by plants, algae, and some bacteria. And then this oxygen gets dissolved in the deep layers below the ocean, which keeps the marine life alive. This means that the amount of oxygen should gradually decrease as we go into the deeper layers of the ocean, right? Because, of course, all the fishes above it use it. But what Andrew Sweetman saw in his research was absolutely amazing. Instead of the amount of oxygen decreasing, it was increasing rapidly with depth. Despite all the fishes using up oxygen, the oxygen was not decreasing, but was increasing. In some areas, it was even said that they were getting more oxygen in the deep ocean than the water's surface. This was such a weird observation that Andrew and his team tested it several times again and again using different measurement equipments and finally confirmed that yes, there is something in the dark depths of the ocean that is producing unknown oxygen. This mysterious source was named the dark oxygen. But how was the secret oxygen being produced? How did it still remain hidden from us till now? Is this oxygen playing any role in the life and evolution of the underground and deep sea giant creatures? All these questions started bothering Andrew, and then Andrew's eyes turned towards an interesting observation. Do you remember in the beginning I said that Andrew was worried that deep sea animals might be in danger? What is the reason behind this? Because this Clarion-Clipperton Zone is a very famous area, specifically for deep sea mining. This is literally a money-making machine for the billionaires. Because according to research, this area alone contains metals and minerals worth trillions of dollars. If we evaluate into numbers, the figure will be 16 to 17 trillion dollars. Just imagine minerals worth trillions of dollars, out of which the most in-demand metals are manganese, nickel, and cobalt, of which approximately 75 to 85% is found here. And that too from just one source. And that source is these little plateaus about the size and shape of potatoes, and these are called polymetallic nodules. These stones are so unique that they take years of time to form, during which metals and minerals get slowly deposited in them layer by layer. And the interesting thing is that these stones are spread over an area of 90 lakh square kilometers in the seafloor of this region, whose total quantity is approximately 2,100 crore tons. Was there some clue of dark oxygen hidden in these stones? This was the question that came to Andrew and his team, but who could answer it? There was only one person who was the king of the chemistry of the maritime world, and also Andrew's colleague, Dr. Franz Geiger. Both the scientists decided that why don't we test this rare rock in our lab by creating an environment exactly like the one in the bottom of the ocean. This way we can observe the behavior of these rocks carefully. And so, he immediately brought the same metallic nodules from the ocean floor, disinfected them with mercury chloride to kill any oxygen-producing bacteria present, and finally kept them in an airtight jar inside water and started tracking the oxygen levels by recreating the exact environment of cold and salty water. Instead of oxygen decreasing, it started increasing in that vessel. and that too so much that it increased 3 times the normal levels. This means that now it has been proved that the source of this newly born oxygen gas is not any plant or microorganism at all. Then what was happening? How was a black rock breathing out oxygen? Well, now all that was needed was one last experiment which would finally turn Dr. Geiger's doubts into belief. But it was not going to be that easy, because some people were after these two scientists, some big people who wanted to earn trillions of dollars. I'm just pausing the story here for a while, and I want to ask you a question. Oxygen, the gas which is literally our life, consider it our soul. Was it because of this gas that we were born? Or did life on Earth or plants give birth to oxygen? Kind of like the hen came first, or egg. Look, you will be amazed to hear the Earth was born 4.5 billion years ago, right? Life on Earth first appeared around 3.8 to 4.1 billion years ago. But up until just 2.4 billion years ago, the amount of oxygen in Earth's atmosphere was low, just 0.001%. Today, it's around 21%, and that is why creatures like us are able to breathe and are alive. So then the question arises that 2.4 billion years ago, what exactly happened on Earth that it was like an oxygen bomb exploded? Just imagine, 2.7 billion years ago, the Earth looked exactly like an alien planet. Orange sky filled with dust, methane and carbon dioxide without oxygen, a sea full of sulfur and iron, on whose surface some bacteria and microorganisms were growing by feasting on this chemical waste. In these very lives, a hero's born who will change the fate of the Earth. Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, it developed a genetic mutation that gave it a unique ability to use sunlight and water to create energy, which we today call photosynthesis. But in this process, this oxygen gas started getting released as waste, the reason which changed both the direction and condition of life on Earth. These living beings began multiplying rapidly, causing oxygen levels to rise so dramatically that it seemed as if every inch of Earth's surface and ocean was releasing oxygen, ultimately wiping out other organisms that relied on chemical energy sources. They started dying because this new oxygen gas was poisonous, because oxygen is extremely reactive. But this changing nature and situation gave birth to a new breed of living beings, for whom this poisonous oxygen was nectar. Our microscopic ancestors had already been born under the protection of this oxygen gas. Literally under the protection, because the oxygen gas also created the ozone layer in the upper atmosphere, under whose protection we rapidly multiplied and evolved into all those forms and colors that we see today. Scientists call this event the Great Oxidation Event, and it was only after this that the Earth became the planet that we call home today. But now there is a twist in the story. The discovery of this new oxygen is completely contradicting this fact, because oxygen was already present on Earth, at least in the deeper layers of water. In fact, even today, many studies have shown that in the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, there are 5,000 to 6,000 species of life that survive only in this one unit. 88 to 92% of these species are those that crawl in the seafloor here, but to us, they are completely unknown and undescribed. And all of it is dependent on this dark oxygen. How did we know? Well, in the 1980s, some excavation was done in this area just for testing, and the entire ecosystem was destroyed. 70 to 80% of the life was destroyed, to such an extent that even today, after 45 years, it has not been able to recover. We often think of the entire deep sea as a single ecosystem, but that's a big mistake. It's like saying, because I live in Mumbai, the whole world is like Mumbai. If we find Bengal tiger in India, kangaroo and ostrich are found in Australia, and polar bears are found in the Arctic. But there is much more diversity in the deep sea. There in each trench or deep tunnels live different species which have evolved only for that world. You will not believe it, but if a blue whale dies even on Earth, then thousands of creatures feast on its 150-ton carcass. Not for one day, but for 50 years. First, Large predators like hagfish and sharks feast on its meat, then scavengers like crustaceans and mollusks eat the leftover meat, after which worms eat everything. But in the end, whatever bones, fat, and rotting remains are left. Bacteria that feed on chemicals keep breaking them down for generations, which produce large amounts of hydrogen sulfide gas. This is called sulfophilic stage. And hydrogen sulfide, as you already know, is the food of deep-sea microbes, which are then eaten by tube worms, which are then eaten by squids and macleans. And this cycle continues. What a disgusting beauty of nature, right? Did you know that there are poisonous ponds in deep sea? Poisonous for us, of course, but for many creatures, their home, their world. Look at this. These are called coal seeps or brine pools. Now, ponds inside the sea? It is amazing, right? This is because these are made of brines, which are extremely salty water. 5 to 6 times saltier than seawater. That is why this water also drowns in seawater, because its density is higher and because there is no oxygen here. Methane and other gases and minerals are accumulated in abundance. This is poisonous for many animals as well. But this poison is the food of bacteria, which are eaten by shellfishes that circle around this pond and are then eaten by crabs, shrimps, fish, and even sharks. These are typical examples of how a small ecosystem connects to a large food chain on which the lives of many organisms depend. That too, for many decades and centuries. And now if we talk about polymetallic nodules that produce dark oxygen, create a large ecosystem, then the mining operations of the 1980s have already proved it by destroying 70 to 80% of lives and their ecosystems, which could not be recovered even today after 45 years. But the sad thing is that even after such clear proofs, it is known that a powerful lobby has emerged which is openly denying it, like the metals company TMC. The most ironic thing is that this TMC company itself had got the initial research of the deep sea done through scientists. But when the bitter truth came out, then it tried to suppress it completely. TMC blamed the discovery of those 2 scientists and called it misleading, and even started blaming the Nature Geoscience journal, which is a proper peer-reviewed scientific journal. Are dollars more important to these billionaires and corporations than the fragile lungs of our oceans? Well, there was only one way to stop them, and that was in the hands of these 2 scientists. So, till now Andrew Sweetman and Dr. Franz Geiger, both these scientists, had proved in their lab experiment that these metallic nodules actually release oxygen gas. But now, they just had to prove that this rock is actually producing dark oxygen through some mechanism. So, how did these 2 scientists do it? Well, Dr. Franz remembered that he had once proved through a lab experiment long ago that salty seawater can produce electricity by interacting with rusty metals under certain special conditions. Like an underwater battery, under the right conditions, it can create a simple type of reaction. A reaction that can split water, meaning H2O, into 2 parts, hydrogen and oxygen. I'm talking about electrolysis. So, is it possible that these underwater polymetallic nodules are also releasing oxygen through this same reaction? Are there billions of underwater batteries hidden in the dark depths of ocean producing this dark oxygen? Well, it was very important to test this, for which, once again, both the scientists brought the samples of these rocks to the lab and put them in environmentally salty water like a deep ocean. But this time, they placed 2 electrodes on the surface of those rocks and measured it with a voltmeter, and they were shocked. I mean both, emotionally and literally, because 0.95 volts of electricity was actually produced. But how? So the simple principle of electricity is that electricity will always flow from high potential to low potential. This is basically a universal principle which exists in the entire universe. Like, for example, imagine you took a pipe and filled it with water. Will the water flow ahead of you? No, right? Now, if you grab one end of the pipe and lift it, a sudden force will be created in the water inside, pushing it forward. Well, electricity works exactly like this. Lifting the pipe was to create a potential difference, and the flow of water is the force to move the charge forward, which we measure in volts. So a AA battery, which is also called 1.5 volts battery, there is a potential difference of 1.5 volts between the positive terminal and the negative terminal. And to cover that difference, the charges travel from the side where they are in excess to the other side where they are in lesser numbers. in that direction with a force of 1.5 volts. And if you insert any circuit in between, like a bulb for example, the charge will pass through that circuit and reach the negative terminal, and that bulb will light up. Now if you look at this polymetallic stone, manganese is already there, which is exactly present in our batteries and which creates the positive terminal. These just don't have zinc like batteries normally have, but iron oxide replaces it by playing the role of the negative terminal. The rest of the medium, which is called electrolyte, is actually seawater, which is already filled with ions like Na+, Cl-, H2+, and OH-. That's why when scientists placed one electrode at one point on its surface and another at a different point, the voltmeter showed a reading of 0.95 volts of electricity, which shocked both scientists because they weren't expecting it in millivolts. In fact, they had expected electricity to come out in nanovolts. So electricity produced was way more than expected. Now, if this rock is actually producing electricity, then it simply means that deep under the sea, the process of electrolysis is happening in which a lot of dark oxygen is being produced, right? Well, there's a catch. Both scientists agreed that for the electrolysis process to take shape, at least 1.23 volts of electricity is needed, but we only got 0.95 volts, which they addressed in their research paper by writing that these rocks can definitely produce 1.23 volts as well if they are found in larger numbers or in clustered form, which is quite common in a deep water landscape, for example. Even just two rocks together can produce 1.9 volts. Now, in 2023, this research was properly validated, and with statistical data, it was also confirmed that there is a consistent link between this voltage and oxygen production. And after this, finally in 2024, this study was published in a proper peer-reviewed scientific journal, Nature Geoscience, because the evidence was really quite convincing. But in September 2024, the metals company gave an unusually large reply, challenging this discovery with a lot of raw data and research notes. They said that they have been spending $75 million over 12 years funding researchers to mine minerals in an honest and sustainable way, so that clean energy can be produced. But how much can this company's word be trusted? Their conflict of interest is clearly visible. But in this matter, COMRC means Critical Ocean Minerals Research Center also got involved and gave yellow flag to this discovery, because they said that two researchers had done similar experiments earlier also, but they did not get such results. For example, the University of Southern Denmark did a similar research, but by using a different type of lander, covariance lander, they got the opposite result. Oxygen was not increasing, but decreasing. Now, the response of Andrew and team was that this covariance lander cannot measure the results so accurately, but some other genuine scientists and researchers have also raised concerns, such as Bo Bakker Jorgensen, an independent researcher at Aarhus University. Just 2 months ago, he got the exact opposite result, and he said in a magazine interview that Sweetman's research had some methodological flaws. Like number one, in the lab experiment, we did not replicate the 400 times higher pressure of the deep sea, which according to Andrew is irrelevant in the end result. Number two, how exactly 0.95 to 1.2 volts is being generated? This is quite speculative and no clear-cut mechanism has been proved for it. And number three, hydrogen gas was also not accurately measured in the research, because if H2O is being split through electrolysis, then hydrogen gas should also be released along with oxygen. So is hydrogen gas increasing? So all in all, according to Jorgensen, this research has raised more questions than it has answered and has made us realize how little we still know about the ocean. So, has it been proved that Andrew and team's research is wrong? Well, not at all. In fact, now the game has started to gain momentum even more, because Andrew's research got a lot more support than criticism. Whenever there is a big discovery in science, massive debates always start, which is also the beauty of science, because this makes us run even harder to ascertain the truth with complete accuracy and precision. Repeatability is of great importance in science, for which many scientists have now started performing such experiments themselves, to observe and experience it themselves. As of now, July 2025. The good news is, even after them spending billions of dollars and lobbying in their favor, but despite all this, most marine scientists are against it. And with their confidence, even 33 countries are supporting a ban or at least a temporary hold on deep sea mining. And that is why the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, a global authority, has put a temporary hold on deep-sea mining until we properly understand all the risks involved in deep-sea mining. But the bitter truth is that deep-sea mining is just a small trailer of the negligence of us humans. Just take a look at this area. Its size is as huge as 2 Pakistan, but this is not land, but a pile of garbage. Yes, it's a massive pile of waste as big as 2 Pakistans or 3 Rajasthans, and this is just a proper dump where waste is extremely concentrated in water, and in some areas it is in solid concentration. But if you count its soft edges also, then this patch is bigger than India. A research of 2014 told that there are at least 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic here, whose total weight is 269,000 tons. Just because of this one patch, you will not believe that every year 1 million seabirds and 1 lakh marine mammals die, or by eating something poisonous, getting trapped in a pit of plastic, or getting trapped in nylon fish nets. And the most concerning thing is that this is not the only garbage patch in the world. Look, there are at least 5 major garbage patches in the world, and who knows how many minor patches there might be. Just listen to the story of a retired naval officer and researcher, Victor Vescovo. In his 5 deep-sea expeditions, he had the opportunity to visit the deepest points of all 5 oceans. And as soon as he reached there, plastic wrappers and bags were waiting for him.
But as I continued going along the bottom, cruising around, I did see what appeared to be 1 or 2 particles of man-made matter, and one of them had a letter on it printed.
Just imagine, these plastics are reaching deep tunnels 11 kilometers below water. Now the biggest problem is that these plastics will never get destroyed naturally. They will just keep accumulating for centuries, which is toxic for the fishes and their ecosystems. The way we are showing negligence, according to many reports, by 2040, the amount of plastics in the oceans will triple. This means that there will be more plastic in the sea than fish. Just imagine, and I was talking about macro, that is large-sized plastics, which means that microplastics will multiply even faster in the ocean. According to a study of 2017, plastics and microplastics are being found in the stomachs of 71% seabirds and 30% turtles, out of which 50% animals die due to this. A study by Portland University found traces of macroplastics in 99% of the fish that Americans were eating. Another research found the same microplastics in 100% of fish samples. Due to this, the situation today has become such that an average human being consumes 78,000 to 2 lakhs, 11,000 microplastics every day through food and water. You won't believe it. University of New Mexico did research on 51 brain samples. It was found that each brain sample contained more plastic than a credit card. Yes, 0.5% of brain's mass, which comes to around 6 to 7 grams pure plastics. As much as a credit card just inside the brain. Imagine how much would be there in lungs, kidneys, and other organs. Microplastics are even getting into the placentas of newborn babies. How would it be affecting the growth and development of babies? Human civilization is literally moving at the speed of a horse, while the rules meant to protect nature are being written at the pace of a snail. Debates go on for years, and then when it becomes very late, then they are implemented. We humans, we have become the biggest enemies of the nature that gave birth to us. The discovery of dark oxygen has exposed this unsettling reality before our eyes. Andrew and his team have been given a grant of £2 million by Japan's Nippon Foundation to carry out more deep and rigorous research on this subject. The research, which started in 2025, will continue for 3 more years, and next year, in 2026, they will send their equipment 11,000 meters below the dark sea. Their major goals will be, number 1, to reproduce their original discovery. If their discovery remains consistent here also, then this is a very good sign. Number 2, and this time they will also carefully measure the hydrogen levels, because in the electrolysis process, not only oxygen but also hydrogen gas is released. Number 3, this newly produced hydrogen is also very important for the survival of deep water creatures. Number 4, and finally, Could microorganisms also play a major role in producing this dark oxygen? Or is this source of oxygen purely abiotic, means life independent? Now just think what deep implications this research could have. I mean, we have always assumed that life is dependent on photosynthesis for oxygen, for which both liquid ocean and sun are absolutely necessary. That is why we target exactly those planets with space telescopes like Kepler, which, like the Earth, are in the Goldilocks zone from our star, at almost the same ideal distance from our star as the Earth. But if it is proven beyond a doubt that dark oxygen is a major source of oxygen in the deep sea, which can produce oxygen even without life or photosynthesis, then should we limit our alien life search operations only to planets in the Goldilocks zone? Are liquid oceans and sun also necessary criteria? I mean, what does life require? Water, energy, and chemistry. Water is also found in the deeper layers of frozen oceans. Energy is also produced in the depths of the frozen world through the extreme heat of hydrothermal vents, the vents through which most scientists agree that life originated on Earth too, and not sun's energy. And finally, the right chemistry. Now the presence of dark oxygen supports the right chemistry even more because oxygen makes life evolve faster. The interesting thing is that even on Earth, the sun had very little role in the birth of life. All the right biological molecules like nucleic acids, like RNA, lipids, and amino acids are formed in the absence of sun, several kilometers below the sea level. So it's the deep sea itself capable of producing and sustaining life. Dark oxygen may hold the answer to these questions. But until then, we humans must stop ourselves from destroying our own future through our greed and negligence. Do share this video with your friends and family. And as always, stay curious, stay human.